Well, I have a "You're live" text on the front of my screen, so I think I'm actually broadcasting at this moment. This is entirely new. Oh, hello, Michael Barkus. I actually have a message from somebody already. Let's see here. I'm your age, and although I've never been in prison, I'm still adapting to the modern way of communication via internet, social media. Was that a big adjustment for you after your release? Goodness, yes. And I was very technically inclined prior to my arrest. I loved computers, did my whole life. I even read PC magazines whenever I was in prison, but I got out. I'm still confused by this stuff. Facebook. I have to ask my wife to help me use Facebook because I keep getting confused by how to contact people on it. 3 years. You would think I would have adjusted to it, but I haven't. Hi, Rise Over 344. Hi, Rise Over 305. Hi, Shelton Chang, Brian Vieira. Oh, hey, Campfire Fire Stories with JR. Good to see you, man. Lunatic. Sup, Holmes? Man, I'm so excited you guys decided to check in. This is awesome. Hey, can somebody let me know? Can you all hear and see me fine? I know this is just a crappy camera on my computer, but it's what I got. Rise and shine, program time. So I'm just assuming that I'm going out live. All right, there we go. Looking good. We hear and see you. Thanks. I was a little nervous, honestly, because it's kind of like just talking to a mic. So, listen, I'm just devastated about this Shane Goldsby case, and I just got pointed out there's one or two other guys. There's a guy in Alaska, Jason, doing time for going out, and I guess he actually hunted down some pedophiles. But gosh, this doesn't make any dang sense to me. How'd you deal with the anger from being confined so long from Shelton? For about 3 years, the time I was on parole, we're being honest, I didn't. What I did is I hid. I tried to stay out of the mix. It's just the past couple of months since I came off parole that I'm really kind of adjusting and considering how much of my life was just, in prison in a box. I am angry. I'm calm about it. I'm not enraged, but I'm angry, bitter. Trying to get past it. I am. It's not something I should be. There were people who got fired for offensive Twitter and Facebook comments on social media. There's been a lot of this going around, and it is what it is. I'm glad that at least in this forum, so long as we stick to the subject at hand as much as we can talk about whatever we want. I'm not going to kick somebody out for being at least a little bit, saying what they feel. It's discussion. It's a forum, and anybody has something to say, gosh. I am so excited to have heard back from Scooby, incidentally, and I've spoken about it very little outside of the video, but he's doing so good, and it's so awesome that somebody that I saw that long ago, he's got 33 years in prison at the age of 50, well, prison and whatever, YA, and he's a paralegal. He got his associate's degree. That is an accomplishment. Plenty of people who don't go to prison never get that stuff done. How come you didn't try to sue for false allegations and false imprisonment? I took a plea bargain, basically, and I'm hopeful that someday in the future I'll be able to, in a court, point out some of the injustice, because laws were legitimately broken. You can point at things and say, but this isn't the way the law is supposed to work. That said, I agreed to it. I didn't want to go to trial. My co-defendant, Ty, who had a similar case to mine, though, he lied in court, and that doesn't help. He got life without. It was a short murder trial. I didn't want to get life without for a short murder trial, even though my case was better than his. It was terrifying. I took a West plea. And it means I'm not admitting I did it, but I'll go to prison for it because I don't want to go to prison for longer for it. Hey, Yempton Pig and Al Carroll. I'm excited. I got 6 people watching my live stream. If I'm going to be honest, I was kind of worried I was just going to sit here and talk. But your good friend is keeping busy and becoming a paralegal. I agree, 305, man. It's great to hear from Scooby. I've gotten a couple letters back and forth, and I'm not going to go into every detail of everything. I'm going to respect his privacy as much as I can. But I am so excited that he's doing well. It's neat to look back at somebody that you hadn't seen for, gosh, I guess, 16 years, 15 years? and realized that he got his life together afterwards, that you had him as somebody who, if they really got it together, they had so much potential. And he does, and he did, and he's going to do so great. I guarantee you, you're going to see him on a computer or on the news as the inmate that made good and worked at a charity and helped other people. It's going to be great. It's going to be a couple of years, but it's going to be great. You know, I have about 137 stories about prison that I can go ahead and just toss out there for a little while from trying to talk on a live stream. There's an article that says you joined the other two in the murder because one of them would screw it up, from Shelton Chang. Those are the articles that were written by mostly Bruce Anderson, or at least under his purview at the Anderson Valley Advertiser. He took special interest in my case, but he predominantly took a special interest in Ty's case. So many of the newspaper articles are a little biased or from an angle, and to his credit, he's done a lot for Ty, and he rightly should. Ty was the guy doing life without. I just got 16 years, 17 years, 20 years, whatever you want to call it, you know, based on what % of my time I did. Well, you interview your people on your channel like all the other prison YouTubers. If I'm being honest, I hadn't intended to. Like, maybe I was going to reach out a little bit, but I'm adjusting what my plans are. Somebody wants to do an interview. If I can convince anybody to let me talk to them, absolutely. I'd like to touch on, you know, Shane Goldsby and other cases like it, if possible. I really feel like that's the thing I want to talk about now. But yes, I want to talk to anybody who wants to talk to me. That's going to be great. All right, give me a second to get caught up on these texts. Make sure I didn't skip anybody. There we go. JC West Coast. What's up, Callie? My mom. Oh, hey. No, I absolutely remember who you are. I was going to email you in the next week or two. You left a message in one of my comments saying I ought to reach out. Yeah, cool. How would Southsiders and Woods react to a mobster at Tyus de Norteño's? Oh, yeah, because you had the connection whenever you got locked up. I remember you mentioned it in your comment. I've actually given a couple of minutes thinking about that. You see, JC West Coast had some ties, and yes, the Southsiders, the Serranos, and the Whites, they're tight in not just California prisons, most U.S. prisons. That said, the question is, money, dope, it changes politics quick, and I don't know what would happen if somebody actually came in and tried to mess with the system. No, that's not a direct quote from me, Shelton Chang. What did the newspaper say? It said, I'm going to have to be there because you're just going to mess it up or something like that. That was a quote from Ty or August. They both gave lengthy interviews to the police, and the videotapes of those interviews, in which they made plenty of allegations. I think there were about 20 different stories that were told. Those got picked through by reporters and police for quotes that I may have said, that somebody else said that I said. I didn't give any statement to the police outside of about a 3-hour interview where I put my head in my hands and kept telling them that I didn't know what they were talking about and they should just let us go. What prison YouTubers do you follow or watch on YouTube? Gosh, most recently it was G. Williams, Let's Live Life. I hadn't really done much on him, but I saw the video he did about the Goldsby case, and boy, it really got to me. So I've watched a couple more of his videos and I like him. There are a lot of decent prison channels out there. If I'm talking about prison channels, there's no way that I can neglect to mention Streets Ain't Loyal. They actually reached out and made a point to say that they liked my content, that I seemed like a pretty, I think he's a moral and decent person. What a kind thing for somebody who didn't know me to say on their channel because they wanted my content to spread. Stories written by Current Prisoner. They got they have real raw content. They do audio interviews with inmates, and they actually have an inmate with whom I'm acquainted, Powder, who he and I did time at the same prison. He knew me, Scooby, Stu. We all sat and ate at the same table most every night. He didn't really like me, but he knew me. I knew him. Tampa in the house. Love to stay. All right, Sunshine. It was good to see you. Let's see here. I'll catch up on this video later when I'm plugged in. Cool. Thanks, Sunshine. That's right. Money changes policies and rules and organizations fast. That's right, JC. everybody wants to pretend the gang thing is about, we stand with this group and we ride or die. We got this tattoo. And that's great. And I understand loyalty and groups and things like that. But at least the guys on the top, no, it's money. They'll buy or sell most everything. And that's how you get to the top. There's not even necessarily anything wrong with it. It's capitalism. But if you're in a gang and you really believe the stuff, don't think the guy at the top does. That's my best advice. Don't think the guy above you necessarily does. He probably just likes the nice house he got. Maybe not. I don't know, but that's my interpretation. Do you follow 30 to Life? Absolutely, I follow 30 to Life, and I probably should have mentioned them because, again, and this is crazy, we did time in the same building, the same time I did the same building I did time with Powdering. 3 block, B Yard, High Desert. 30 to Life was there, I think, until 2003 or something like that. I got there in 2001. I remember the dude. I remember shaking his hand. It was Uso Ron. He seemed put together. He was another. So we barely interacted. I probably said less to 100 words to him in the, I think, 2 years I was in the same building with him. But, he seemed like a decent guy. And he's reached out, too. I'm going to email him today and ask if, maybe we can do an interview or something. I got something to talk about. Let's see here. Thanks for asking, Salage Day Girl. I actually wanted to shout out to Soron. He seems like a decent guy. And Gunners Collective, probably 2 or 3 other channels that have legitimately reached out to me. And I'm going to fail to thank them for reaching out to me now. But I email them and say, please, let's do an interview. Let's talk. Up to this point, I've been pretty happy to, kind of be off to the side, telling my story. But I got more to say now. Did the Hells Angels get along with the AB in the California prison system? That's a good question, Rise Over. And the answer is no, they do not get along. It's difficult to explain the intricacies of prison politics. I'm sorry, my mouth is dry. Gunners Collective and Convicts Perspective are also both good channels, absolutely. It's difficult to explain the intricacies of California prison politics. I mean, I wasn't involved during the mix anyway, but I was off to the side, and you get an honest impression of what's going on. They're not going to bother to lie to an inmate. It's complex. Long story short is that money's always going to change the system, and the Hells Angels, they're not interested in running a prison gang, as best as I can tell. They have policies. They don't recruit from prison, or at least they didn't whenever I was around. You go to prison, it's whoever you are, and you go to an HA and go, hey, I like you. I want to be in your gang. At least theoretically, as they explained it to me, and not that I asked to join, but I do understand the policies here. They'll tell you, well, all right, get out. Get off parole. Come to the clubhouse, man. You seem all right. We'll get you in. As opposed to almost any other gang, if they do recruit in prison and you end up, butting heads and trying to kill each other. This happened between the NLR and the HA. NLR went recruiting. Hey, who wants to be NLR? Take you up to the cell. Attach you up right now. You want to bet who won the little war between the NLR, who were tight with the AB back then, and the HA, who said, we ain't paying taxes, we're going to do our own thing? HA are not protective custody SNY. They're still good on the line, but they're good on the non-Aryan Brotherhood yards. And there aren't too many of them because the AB is a force in California prisons. No, I don't believe I've ever met Ryan Leon. I'll Google him whenever I get out. Fishlock, once you're granted parole, how long does it take to get out? This can change a lot from state to state or system to system. Here in California, you know what your parole date is, and within 30 days, I believe it is 35 days, it won't change. Once they have told you that your parole date is June 3rd, from there, 35 days before, even if something happened that would reduce your amount of time you had to serve in prison, say you got some time back or a judge realized you'd made a mistake, they generally won't release you before the day that they've said for the purposes of victim notification and the paperwork, making sure everything processes properly. So the minimum window is generally about a month or 4 weeks, unless there's an actual court order, let him out today because this is a miscarriage of justice. If you're a lifer and you go to board and then get a parole instead of a normal parole date, it can be a lot longer. They can tell you, we're going to let you out in 5 years. So long as you don't get into trouble for the next 5 years, it's a contingent parole date. Almost to 1,000 subscribers. Absolutely. I'm pretty excited about it myself, L Train. My wife, she's more excited than I am. She's really working to try and get this so that people notice it. I kind of just sit in front of the camera, and it's I have the cool part of the job. She works hard. I'm just sitting here. I get to talk, which is what I've always loved to do. Anyway, if we're being honest, excuse me. Did I have to travel to a different state to short half my prison time? That's an interesting question. And the answer is that no, that I didn't, but a lot of inmates in California did travel to other prisons. I was already a protective custody inmate whenever they started the whole thing about traveling inmates to other prisons. They didn't start that until 2006, 2007. They were trying to fix the overcrowding problem in California. The state of California had more prisoners than the entire federal prison system. And so the California legislator, the California prison system, they had the idea, well, why don't we just ship inmates out to other states? If a guy wants to do time in Oklahoma, let's send him to Oklahoma. There's a private prison there. And I didn't sign up on any of these, but I spoke to a lot of guys who went and came back or who wanted to go. It was an interesting system, and there were goods and bads to it, basically. I'm always leery of private prisons, but a lot of guys had good things to say. Gosh, I don't think I meant Alan Liddell either. I'm going to have to get into these comments and Google some of these names because I honestly don't know who these people are, which I suppose that speaks to how little I was involved in some of this stuff. I've been live for 16 minutes. I figure I'm going to do another, 4, 10 minutes, anywhere in there if y'all have any questions you want answered. I just wanted to establish this as a means of communicating, and I do think I'm going to do a weekly live stream or heck, more often if y'all were interested in it. You can toss out in the comments what kind of content you want. I'm happy to do it. Oh, I ought to mention, I made the smallest, crappiest Patreon account in the world. So anybody who's interested in actually signing up on Patreon and joining the members group of my page, the link is in the comments or the link is in the description. And at this point, there's essentially no curated comment. What you get is one post from me saying, hi, welcome to the Patreon. But, I'm going to do it in the future. It'll be a fun way to communicate if anyone's interested. Was I ever a level 2? I was absolutely a level 2. And I spent, I guess the majority of my time on level 2 yards. I started as a 4 with 70 points. And they basically told me just get used to being on a high security yard. But they'll take off 8 points a year. If you behave, you get in no trouble, you do everything they tell you, you're careful, it's 8 points a year. That was, 6 years to get down to level 2. It was a long time, but I did do it. And 2 yards were very different. You live in dorms, open dormitories, there's people everywhere, it's loud, it's chaotic. I didn't like it, except there were way, way fewer knives. The likelihood of being stabbed in the face for making a mistake was really low on a 2 yard. I loved that. The rest of it I could take or leave. I don't remember hearing about you, Mosh, but I might have been around. I was SNY then. Where was I? 2015 would have been Chino, West Yard, and then Chowchilla. Massier. I was almost level 3. They didn't write up some of the fights I got into. I was at SAT-F before then, Corcoran. I was not at the old Corcoran. I met Michael Thompson at VSP Chowchilla, D-Yard. I finished out my time at Chowchilla. I was only there for a couple of months, but for a men's prison, because for anyone who doesn't know, Chowchilla was a women's prison. And again, California was so overcrowded, they decided to switch it. They moved all the women out of the prison and started moving men in. There was a short period of time where men and women were actually housed together at the prison, except, of course, isolated, not in the same cell or housing unit. As soon as the women left, the food got awful. Apparently, there's a different menu for women and men, and the food went back to being normal CDC food. But for a couple of weeks, every male inmate there was just throwing a party over how much decent food they were getting for the first time in who knows how long. Michael Thompson at VSP. Now that I'm thinking about it, isn't he an old AB guy? Isn't he, big name? I never paid that much attention to the names, but I think he might have rolled up at High Desert. Like he was there for a week. They kicked him out of the shoe, and we all knew he was going to go back to the shoe. And I never spoke to him. I kept my distance, but I think maybe he was there. Did I ever land in State Prison Chowchilla or Corcoran SADF A Yard from Massey? Heck yes, I did. Both of those places. SADF A Yard, I spent a bunch of time on. Whenever they flipped it, everybody left A Yard and went to G Yard, and then about a year later, we all left G Yard and came back to A Yard again because of prison overcrowding. If I'm not making clear how overcrowded CDC was, that was an experience. Gosh, I was in A Yard, I think maybe every building on the yard. Yeah, absolutely every building on the yard. I made a joke about it at one point. I was going to be the lieutenant's clerk on A Yard, but I ended up trying to get out of a transfer and going to a mental health crisis bed. And after that, they didn't let me be a clerk anymore. Let's see here. I'm looking for some more interesting comments. If I had the chance before I'm being sentenced, would I have escaped the USA and moved to Mexico? You know, I'm always having to decide exactly what stories to tell and what not. And I swear I've tried to be a moral guy my whole life. But listen, if you're around criminals enough, you start thinking about crimes in some way. And this was one question I've asked myself. What if I'd fled the country? What if I'd just taken the opportunity whenever the cop... no, I'm sorry. How about I just taken the opportunity whenever I could have to ran? Where would I have went? I came up with a plan in my head at the time, and I always thought it was clever because I loved computers, old technology. I was using the Apples and the Macs and things, the old Apple IIe's and the Intro Macs and the PCs that you had to put together yourself. I loved that antique tech. If I'd ran, and I wouldn't, I did my time. I would have went north. Followed that coast all the way up to the edge of Alaska and tried to go to Russia and find some job using antique tech. I figured I'd stand out a lot less in Russia than I would have in Mexico. That's just my logic. I didn't give it a lot of thought. But let's see here. Oh, I'm a little behind. I guess that question took longer to answer than I thought. Or, you know, the chat is texting off. I never did any time at MCCF. Chowchilla was a good prison deal. Was 6-man pods, and they were big. They were like the size of a 14-man dorm. The dorms on A Yard at SADF, which is no frame of reference to anybody else, but they were decent pods to live. You had your own toilet and shower in every cell. If you're doing time in CDC, Chowchilla's the prison I recommend going to. I don't think I knew a Freddie Jarrett, but it's hard to remember the names of everybody you ran into, Fishlock. Let's see here. Massier, the AB dude. Oh yeah, he Hard Intentions. He Hard Intentions did a channel about Mike Thompson. I remember who you're talking about now. Yeah. I don't know anything about him or his case. I didn't follow this story. He's a big AB guy that rolled up or dropped out recently. I'm sure it's news. It's just I haven't followed some of the prison stuff recently. Michael Thompson snitched on the AB and committed EDD fraud. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Here's, I suppose that story will be interesting to watch it play out. I know the guy in Hard Intentions, Smiley. He does a couple of stories about Mike Thompson. He seemed like a decent dude. Mitch Smiley's another person I plan on doing an interview with if I ever get the opportunity. Oh, you talked to him at VSP. That's interesting, Massier. Iron, this runner or clerk at Sat F. Actually, I might just know a clerk at Sat F who, Iron. It's hard to say. It's been a long time, but no, I knew a dude at Sat F named Iron. He was about 25 then, younger white guy. So I guess he'd be about 35 now, and he might be a clerk at Sat F, or, you know, there's probably 6 dudes who go by Iron in the system, so maybe not. I'll try to remember some names. How do I stay cool in California prisons in the summertime? That's a fun question, Justin McCoy. And the answer is you don't. I mean, it's going to depend on what prison you're at. I was at High Desert, and the temperature's only like low 90s in the summer, and you're just going to be low 90s. They have a swamp pool in the building that kicks on, which theoretically keeps the temperature in the building no higher than about 80, 82, but the humidity gets pretty high, so it's a trade-off. Conversely, if you go someplace down south like Chino, where I did time, well, you're just going to be hot. They had a fan in the building, and it was a big wooden barracks with windows. So essentially, the temperature outside is the temperature inside. And you cook in the summer, you freeze in the winter. That's just part of prison, I suppose, and it sucks. But I don't know if you get used to it, but you certainly adapt. For myself, I actually put a lot of work into staying cool because I overheat easily. And so I would take a sheet and wet it. And then I would get a couple of small fans that I'd buy off the tier. I'd have 2 or 3 of them and put them next to the sheet. And then I'd be at the other side of it. I'd improvise myself a swamp cooler. It worked pretty well. And I'd actually have other inmates or cops come over and look at the thing that I had built and laugh and ask if I could help them make one. And other people thought that I was pretty silly because I'm basically hiding under a wet sheet in the middle of the afternoon. But if it's 100 degrees and you're overheated, you do what you got to do. Hey, thanks, Nalaxami Queen. Have fun in Lexington. I've never been to Kentucky. And thanks. Oh, hey, Boss Hog, you've given some great comments. I appreciate it. So listen, guys, we're about, almost a half hour into this live stream. I guess I'm going to cut it at about a half hour because I don't know what else to say. But I do think we're going to have some regular live streams. I'll go ahead and schedule something out. And, guys, you write down any dang question you want, unless it's one of the couple of things that I'm just not talking about yet, but I will soon. I'll answer any question you want. I'm an open book about prison. And there are some interesting aspects of prison life that I've barely gotten a chance to touch on. So anyone who has a video recommendation, toss it in the comments, or better yet, check out that Patreon, and it's going to be a little private community. And I really don't mind what content I create. I just like talking about this. I like being able to get what I have to say out, what I learned in prison out in some way. I usually wrap up the videos with, I don't know, a lesson you want to call it. I don't want to put too much on this. It's something that I learned. I don't know that I have a specific one for a live stream just about, hi guys, I'm doing live streams now, but take a moment. Stop, think. I've said it 1,000 times, and I'm probably going to put it on a t-shirt or something because it's what I tell myself literally 1,000 times a day. I don't regret one of those times. I've spent more moments stopping and thinking than I've done anything else in my life. I was never at Mule Creek, and thanks from Detroit, Boss Hog. All right, guys, 27 and a half minutes. I'm going to wrap it up. Let's see if I can figure out how to stop a live stream. That's the button. Thanks for listening, and I will be doing this more often. I legitimately appreciate the opportunity to share this with you. Thanks, guys.